You're listening to the Drinks and a Movie podcast, hosted by Rudy Ruiz. Spoiler alert.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Drinks and Movie Podcast. Today, I'm solo. This is just kind of an impromptu double feature episode. I saw two great movies this week, or two good movies this weekend, I should say, and I just wanted to chat about them. It's kind of hard to get people to watch new movies and to be able to record them in a timely manner together and with work schedules and all that, and I didn't really want to wait on these, so I'm here to just kind of talk to you about it right now. I'm going to be talking about The Long Game, which just came out this weekend, starring Jay Hernandez. And I'm also going to be talking about Alex Garland's Civil War, which also just came out this weekend. I think that one was pretty highly anticipated. And I just wanted to chat about my thoughts. That one I actually saw twice already. Now, since The Long Game takes place in Texas and in Civil War, there's talk of this like Texas-California alliance, I figure I'd do some Texas whiskey. This is one I haven't talked about yet that I've been holding on to for a while. I was waiting until I did a movie that was set in Texas or had to do with Texas or whatever. So I'm going to do it now. This is Garrison Bros Balmorhea Bourbon. So Texas straight bourbon whiskey. This is coming in at 115 proof. Release date 2023. So this bottle is one of their more pricey offerings. If you haven't tried any Texas whiskey, there's quite a few distilleries. Still Austin's a good one. Garrison Brothers, of course. Balcones. I'm sure there's plenty more that I'm not even familiar with yet. But this one I first tried. Sorry, I have the bottle in my hand and there's a metal that comes with it. So that's what's kind of clinging around. But this one I first tried on a podcast episode from a couple years ago. Chris co-hosted with me and we had Shannon Hood on the show. And she is a spirits or whiskey, I should say, educator. And so we did an episode with her where she sent us some tasters and we did two different blind tastings. I think one was just Texas whiskeys and there was another tasting that was whiskeys from just all different states like Louisiana, Texas, and some other places. So I remember trying the Balmorhea there for the first time. And then, later on I would go on to try it once again at a Garrison Brothers tasting at Bar Jackalope, which you've heard me talk about before. That's inside 7 Grand in downtown Los Angeles. And yeah, I really enjoyed it, especially the second time around. And back in September, my girlfriend and I were going to a wedding. Her cousin got married in Austin, Texas, and we drove down to the Garrison Brothers distillery. And so we got to take the tour, which was really, really cool. I highly recommend it. Unfortunately, we didn't get to hang out there and eat and all that stuff afterwards and kind of chill and have drinks at the bar because we had some other stuff we wanted to do back in in Austin in the city, and it was a bit of a drive away. So if you ever get a chance to go, though, definitely check it out. I love the tour. I love the tasting. It was really cool to just see the process and how everything's done from top to bottom. And the land that it's on is really cool. It would be a really fun time to go with a group of friends and to do the tour and then sit and drink and eat around sunset time. Magic hour would be very beautiful. And if you ever make it out there and you just see kind of the environment, you'll know what I mean. But yeah, so let's try this. I bought this bottle when we were at the distillery. Now this one you can get in most places. I mean, I see it at Total Wine and all kinds of other stores. It is on the pricier side. But I think I had a coupon or a discount or something at the distillery. So I was like, you know what, let's just do it now. I'm just going to buy it here. And it's cool to just buy it on site, So I finally got it there and I haven't opened it yet. So here we go. It's just opening up, just swirling a little bit. It's a nice dark color. I love it. Dark and rich. Now let me read about it a little bit. I'm forgetting to do that. So this is on the label of the bottle. So Balmorhea is a 5-year-old bourbon whiskey aged 4 years in a new American white oak barrel, then transferred to another new American white oak barrel for an additional year of aging. Let me see what it says on the side here as well. It gives us great pleasure to bring you our beautiful Balmorhea bourbon. This magnificent Texas straight bourbon whiskey is bold, but majestically crafted, having been aged not once, but twice in 2 completely different oak barrels. The result is a perfectly balanced, rich bourbon flowing with crimson candy flavored. Cooked, distilled, barreled, and bottled by Garrison Brothers Distillery in High, Texas. Yeah, and I don't remember their mash bill, but I'm pretty sure it's all wheated there. Meaning So corn, they use like a white corn and then wheat and then your malted barley. I don't think they do anything with rye there. I remember them telling a story that they tried to do some rye in the beginning, but like a bunch of stuff kept going wrong and it didn't work out. So all their juice is wheated bourbon. But yeah, here we go. Oh, that's a very sweet nose. Candy indeed. Just quintessential bourbon. I can't like just your blend of, your caramel, vanilla kind of baking spice, like the most basic descriptor I know, but that's what it is. More on the sweeter side. While right there, now I'm getting more of that just like pure white corn. No, interesting how that changes. Like the more candy sweet aspect kind of went away, and now I'm just getting that white corn. And I feel like I can tell that because drinking corn whiskeys like the Sierra Norte Mexican whiskeys that are basically all corn, I think 85 or 90% just white, yellow, black, or whatever corn the expression is. I kind of got used to just that smell. And if you ever smell like white dog, like a white dog bourbon, just straight out the, off the still when it's still clear, you kind of get that similar scent as well. Man, now it's hard to get past that though. It gives it almost like a sour note, a little bit, that white corn, like a sour green apple kind of vibe, losing that bourbon kind of sweetness I had before. But yeah, anyway, here we go. Here's the taste. Cheers. Ooh, that's bold. Yeah, bold. That white corn, exactly what I got on the nose, comes through. That vanilla. There is some kind of like hard candy vibe I'm getting, but I can't quite put my foot on it. It's not like a cherry or something like that, but some kind of candy taste. Again, we're at 115 proof, and this is my first drink of the day. I'm actually recording this at about like just after midnight. So yeah, it's good. Of the ones we tried from Garrison Brothers, this might be, or I think is, my favorite one. I didn't get to try the Guadalupe yet. I forget what the deal with that one is, but I consider getting a bottle at one point, but it is pretty pricey. I want to say it's over 150, maybe close to 200. I could be mistaken. It's been a while since I've seen it, but that's a pricey one. Their honeydew is good if you like something sweeter. Their single barrel offerings, I think, are pretty good. I didn't get to try their cowboy bourbon, which actually released, I think, the day after we were there, which is their like uncut, unfiltered expression, but that would be interesting to taste at some point. But yeah, this is good. It's sweet. It's quintessential bourbon. It's from Texas. If that's interesting to you, I think if you do want to go out and explore some other distilleries outside of Kentucky, this is a good one to try out. Again, I feel like Garrison Brothers I can typically see at a lot of different stores. So give them a shot if you can, or if you see it at a bar, even better, try it at a bar. Still Austin is another good one. If you ever see Still Austin Cast Strength, highly recommend that one as well. But yeah, so Garrison Bros Balmorhea. Now let's talk about these movies.
I know you hear this all the time, but thank you for your service.
Well, I don't hear that all the time, but I was proud to serve my country. I don't want to be a member of just any club. I want to play here.
I got to consider our other members, and they are just not used to seeing a Mexican on the golf course.
I work in a big shop from 12 to 9.
Fetch, ball boy.
It's not even a tough shot, Felipe.
Oh, yeah? Carter says you can't do better.
How about that?
Joe.
Where'd you learn to hit like that? How would you boys like to be the first members of the San Felipe High School golf team?
Us.
They asked me to join the new golf team today.
Golf? You're gonna bring your sombrero anyway, man. Whenever you're invited to a gringo party, you're either the entertainment or the help.
Let me ask you something. Are they any good?
Nope.
But I don't want to be a babysitter to a bunch of juvenile delinquents who just want to get out of detention. You boys built all this.
Yes, Mr. Mitchell.
Sorry, boys. When we spoke on the phone, I assumed you were American.
Well, you assume right. Now, these teams, they've had access to a lot of things you boys haven't. But the best golfer isn't the one with the fanciest clubs. It's the one who can summon the will to keep swinging when things get tough. And that's you boys.
People need to see us as more than just caddies and cannon fodder.
That's just life. Sometimes you land on the green, sometimes you're in the bunker, but you always play it as it lies.
I'm going to start with the long game. And by the way, I know I said this in the beginning, but spoiler alert for both of these movies. I don't know that there's too much to spoil in the long game, but for Civil War and both of these, just letting you know right off the bat again, I am talking about both of these. So spoiler if you haven't seen them. But right now, let's talk about the long game. Jay Hernandez, Dennis Quaid. I'll read the synopsis just off IMDb real quick. So based on the critically acclaimed self-published book by author Humberto G. Garcia, in 1955, 5 young Mexican-American caddies, out of the love for the game, were determined to learn how to play, so they created their own golf course in the middle of the South Texas desert. Despite having outdated and inferior equipment and no professional instruction to begin with, they would go on to compete against wealthy all-white teams and win the 1957 Texas State High School Golf Championship. The film is a field of dreams set in the world of golf. Their inspiring triumph overcame prejudice and broke barriers for many Latino PGA golfers to follow. So yeah, I remember seeing the trailer for this movie a while back. I think on one of the screenings of Radical I went to. That one I saw in theaters 3 times. I also did a solo episode about that. And I saw that Carlos Avila, who was a guest on the show, he's a movie director, television director. He's made this short film called The Kill Floor that it's just like crushing it at festivals and all these places recently. He came on the show and did an episode with me, so you can go check that out if you're interested in directing. And I was reminded of this movie because he posted on Instagram that he had just seen it and recommended it. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that because I only saw the trailer that one time and didn't really hear about it further. So I went today to go watch it, and it is really good. I highly recommend it. Just a good, feel-good movie. Shares some important history that I think more people ought to see on, just being Mexican-American in the 50s and all that. It is your classic, and not really much new to the table. It's your classic kind of underdog sports story. These, kids learning to do the sport and overcoming the odds and kind of defeating everybody else based on a true story. I mean, we've seen it before, but it's still a good take. It's always inspiring. This does bring something, I guess, a little different and potentially new to it because you're dealing with kind of race issues and everything. And it's really good. It is very inspiring. There's a lot of good lines and just kind of writing in here. And, they point out, just the hardships and adversity that people had to overcome, especially at that time, if you weren't like a white American. And it's always interesting to see. There's one moment in particular that I really like that I thought would be much worse than it was, but where, the kids are coming up, they're doing the golf thing, they're getting better at it. It's starting to go well. They go to celebrate by crossing the border into Mexico. They're staying at a hotel that happens to be like really close to the border. So they decide to go out and go over there to party. And it's interesting because they're Mexican Americans, right? But we find that once they get there, they're still, looked down on just as much as they are here in America, which is really sad and unfortunate and definitely all too real. It's that kind of weird dynamic where you can't fit in here, but then you also don't fit in there. As a Mexican American, you're just kind of a misfit in the middle somewhere. That's something that definitely resonates with me very, very, very much. So I did like that scene that they kind of pointed that out. And it's a real bummer that that's just kind of the way things are. And even now, there's still a lot of that same kind of, in my opinion, situation where people that might be more in touch with like the roots or from Mexico or whatever kind of think less of those that are Mexican American. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think that was a really good scene. I like that part. One kind of, I guess, criticism I have of it, and it's a good movie. Again, highly recommend. Jay Hernandez is great. I think all the actors that played the 5, young golfers, everybody was good. But I would have liked more development from those characters. I feel like I never really got to know them well enough. There's one named Joe who kind of takes center stage. He's the one that you get a little more into. Well, he's actually the only one where you see the relationship with like him and his father, that dynamic. But even then, not that much. You get a little bit of him and this girl he's dating. But everybody else gets kind of sidelined. Like in the beginning, when they first introduce all the characters, you get a sense of, I guess, like their vibe and who they are and their group dynamic. But beyond that, we don't really get to know them as much as I would have liked to. Like I think by default, I connect with all of them, and I liked all the actors. I liked everything they did. I just would have liked more. You know, it would have been nice to see a little more, like what was the family dynamic with the rest of them? You know, what were they dealing with outside of the golf stuff besides just the Joe character? And even with him, it's not like you get a lot, you know, you get just enough, but not much. So that, I thought that was kind of interesting. And it is, I want to say like an hour and 45-minute movie, something like that. So maybe it would have been too long to dig deeper into each of the characters. I don't know. And I mean, I guess it is maybe more so Jay Hernandez story. He plays, I think the name was JB Pena, who comes into town to be the superintendent of the school that they're at. And through like a little bit of a golf accident, you know, he comes in and tells them that he wants to teach them to play. And what's interesting is really it's more about him. You know, he wants to join this big, I think it was the Del Rio golf club or whatever, and they won't let him in because he's Mexican. Just that's what it is. Doesn't matter. He's Mexican. So they're not letting him in. And so when he approaches the kids about wanting to teach them to play and start this golf team, it's really out of him wanting to impress these white folks and be able to get him to a position where he can get into this club. So it's actually kind of a selfish act, but they don't lean on that too much. It feels like it's just all good and dandy right out the gate, even though that is his motive. And of course he comes around and he learns to be a better, I think, teacher and to be less kind of selfish, you know, in that regard. And you just got to watch the movie. There's like good lines, like really good little lessons in there. And man, just a lot of just that balance of how, you know, these people don't care and they're going to laugh at you, but you got to go above and beyond just to try and earn their respect. But at the same time, it's like, well, why do we even need to fight for that? You just got to watch it. It's good. But yeah, great movie, great all around. You know, Dennis Quaid's good. He plays like the golf pro. That's Jay's friend who comes in to help coach them. And he's kind of their in to the club and to get into all these places. Cause you know, Dennis Quaid obviously is a white man, but because he was also a pro, he's got all these connections and kind of, you know, helps get them in. But yeah, definitely check it out. It's a feel good movie. It's inspiring. There's some moments of tension where, you know, things can go really wrong and they might go wrong. Do they go wrong? And, you know, dealing with racism and even some of the family dynamics. But yeah, so give it a watch again. Yeah, just could have used a little more character development from everyone else involved. And I hope to see all of those individuals, you know, the 5 young kind of high school. So obviously they're older than high school, but the 5 actors, I hope to see them do a lot more stuff in the future. I mean, all of them are great. One of them I recognize from the movie. What is it? Spare Parts. That's another good one I got to talk about someday. And in the movie, oh man, what was it called? Boy, Demi and Bashir. Oh man, I forgot the name. That's another one I'll have to talk about though. But yeah, that dude's good. Yeah, you know, I hope the best for the movie. Go watch it, check it out. And yeah, take another sip of this Garrison Bros here. Oh, now that vanilla sweetness is coming through on the nose. It's good, bold, but sweet. All right. Now, let's talk Civil War here.
19 states have seceded.
The United States Army ramps up activity.
The White House issued warnings to the Western forces as well as the Florida Alliance.
The 3-term president assures the uprising will be dealt with swiftly.
Let me know if you want to try anything on.
I guess aware there's like a pretty huge civil war going on all across America.
We just try to stay out. With what we see on the news, seems like it's for the best.
Citizens of America.
The so-called Western forces of Texas and California
have suffered a very great defeat at the hands of the United States military.
Mr. President, do you regret the use of airstrikes against American citizens?
We're moving to D.C. today.
We need to go down there.
They shoot journalists on sight in the Capitol. Every instinct in me says this is death.
Bloody.
Every time I survived the war zone, I thought I was sending a warning home. Don't do this. But here we are.
There's some kind of misunderstanding here. What? Well, you're American, okay?
Okay. What kind of American are you? You don't know?
The Western forces will reach the White House on July 4th.
Oh my God.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America.
Once again, spoiler alert for Alex Garland, Civil War. I went in thinking this movie was going to be very political. I feel like everybody probably did, like, oh, what's he going to say? You know, where is this going to fall? What side is it going to be on? What's kind of the message here? But I'm glad it wasn't that. They keep it very vague. Like, it's not really explained that much, almost not at all, like what's really happening. You're just kind of thrown into it. And it's not really, I mean, it's a war movie, but not like an action war movie. You know, it does have an action scenes, and the final act is really intense. And that's when it's the, you know, action packed war film. But it's more of like a road trip movie with these journalists. You know, we're seeing all of this through the eyes of these journalists and war photographers, you know, photojournalists, which I thought was really interesting, especially because right now I'm working in news as a cameraman and as an editor. So I feel like because of my experience, I'm kind of seeing some of this a little bit differently. But one, I really appreciate that it was vague kind of with what it's about. I'm sure there's a lot more you can look into, but we're just thrown into the Civil War. It doesn't tell you anything about like what to think or how to think about it. It just presents it all, and you've got to make your own decisions, which I really love in a film. That's good. I don't need to be told all this stuff or what side to be on. And even as the journalists are going on their journey, you know, it starts with them in New York, and their goal is to get to Washington, D.C. before D.C. falls so that they can get an interview with the president. But it's basically a suicide mission. Like, they shoot press on sight. They don't give a shit over there. You're not getting in. But as Wagner Moura says, who played Pablo Escobar in Narcos, I think his name was Joe in this movie. He says that that's the last story left to get. So that's what they're going to do. And they got to get there before DC falls, and they no longer have their chance. So yeah, let me talk about the cast a little bit. So we got Nick Offerman as the president. In a very short amount of time, we got Kirsten Dunst as Lee, who's like this legendary war photographer, well known. We got Wagner Moura as Joel, not Joe, but Joel. And then we have, what's this girl's name? Kaylee Spaney as Jessie, who's this young up and coming photographer that just kind of joins them because Lee, Kirsten Dunst, is one of her heroes, and she kind of just, you know, tacks on to the ride to go with them and learn how to do the gig. And then we got Stephen McKinley Henderson as Sammy, who's another reporter from, it sounds like an opposing news organization, but he rolls with them as well because he's trying to get to Charlottesville. So we've got a great cast. I think everybody does a good job. You know, it's to me as well, like I said, it's not super action packed. It's really, to me, more of a character driven and character study kind of movie. You know, we have Lee, Kirsten Dunst, who's this very seasoned, same with Wagner Moura, this very seasoned war photographer who's been in the shit for years. This is her career. Like, she's in the grind, you know. And we have the Jessie character, who's the young up and comer, who's like in awe of Lee because that's her hero and she wants to do this. And how in the beginning, she can't really hack it. You know, she's about to get blown up, but Lee saves her and she doesn't get certain shots because she's scared or whatever. But through Lee's mentorship, you know, kind of begins to develop into that type of photographer. And what's interesting is that to do that job and see what you're seeing, you really have to detach yourself. And I think what's interesting with the character arc is it's about how these people, these journalists, like really lose some of their humanity. Like, there's for sure a degree of humanity and compassion that is lost in order to be able to sit there in battle and just take photos of people that are dying and being killed and just strictly being an observer and not getting in and trying to help in any way. You're just there. I think Lee, Kirsten Dunst, says it at one point early on about how you can't, the moment you start asking yourself those questions are, why didn't you do anything, blah, 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 then you're not going to stop and this isn't for you. Something along those lines, like you've got to shut that down. That's for other people to ask. Like, we take the photos so that other people can deal with the questions, which I thought was interesting. And so we see this character, this Jesse character, kind of develop and be in some really bad situations. Like there are some scary, tense moments in this movie. There's some humor as well, but there's some tense moments. Like the scene with Jesse Plemons, like that dude, I don't know what it is about him, but just choices he makes and his vibe. He's so good at playing a bad guy, even a good guy too, I guess. I don't know. He's just good. Even though it doesn't always seem like he's that different of a person from movie to movie. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. That dude's got something. He scares me just looking at that guy getting scared. So he's got the red sunglasses on and the way he just kind of scratches his face and asking them if they're Americans. That was a really interesting scene. And speaking of that aspect of it, you can't really even tell, like you don't know what side you're supposed to be on, right? If any. And as they go on their journey, we don't even know who's who. Like there's one point where they're, with these guys that had her being this kind of standoff, shooting each other, like this battle. There's some in like camo uniforms and the dudes they're with are just in like vests and like Hawaiian shirts and shit. So I don't know what side they're on, but then there's other parts where there would be guys that are in uniform, but they're, just murdering civilians. It seems like that Jesse Plemons group. And then there's another part where they're with the West Coast or California, Texas Alliance. They're in uniform. And so I don't even know, like for all we know, they can be jumping from like side to side, which does make sense because they're just journalists and covering the war as a whole from an unbiased perspective. Of course they would do that. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It's like, you never know who they're even with and why these fights are taking place necessarily. We get a little bit of information when they're in the car traveling and the Sammy character is asking Joel, the guy that wants to interview the president, like what kind of questions he's going to ask. So he'll ask these questions like, oh, what do you think about your choice to disband the FBI? How did you feel it was the right move to launch airstrikes on American citizens? Do you feel it was the right move to do a third term or whatever? So that little scene with very little dialogue does quite a bit of work to give us some context, which I really appreciate. I think that's really well done. Like gives you just enough to kind of make some decisions on some things. And yeah, so I really like that aspect of it. Again, not having any specific thoughts kind of shoved down your throat, just giving just enough information to go along for the ride, to be unbiased and not really know what the sides are because you're just here with these journalists. I really enjoy. Man, there's a great moment where they're in this battle and this one dude gets shot and he's dying. They're trying to help him out. It's not working. And then Jesse's like kneeling down doing photos and Kirsten Dunst, Lee, kneels down next to her, but doesn't have her camera up. And I really like that because to me, it's like she sees the shot. She knows what it is and what's about to happen, but she doesn't take it because I see it as she's giving that moment, that shot to Jesse. And the picture that Jesse gets is the moment that this man, dies. They're trying to help him out. They're like patching him up, but it doesn't work out. And so she's really taken aback by that. There's some moments of like really rough violence in here, not gore or anything like that, which is good, but just the violence of you have somebody on the floor who's been hit and they're like begging to like, not be killed. And then people just kill them on sight, and stuff like that, but not a lot of gore, which is good. I mean, there's a time and place for it. And I'm glad this one wasn't super gory, but yeah, getting back to the character aspect of it as well, spoilers once again, as the movie progresses, like I said, they're getting into these very scary situations. And there's another moment of development for Kirsten Dunst where when I feel she begins to get her humanity back or feel more compassion is when Sammy gets hit and he dies in the car. And she takes a picture of him dead in the car and it's from outside the window. So it's this really beautiful shot of like just him leaning against the window. He's gone, but you can see the reflection of the trees on like the window as well. Like really nice shot. And she makes a choice to delete it. So I feel like that's her turning point. And I love that they conveyed that without any dialogue. It's not like she goes to her friend Joel and is having this whole discussion about her feelings and how this isn't for her anymore. And she needs to move on and she can't hack it now or whatever. It just, her looking at the photo and deciding to delete it because she's hardcore, right? She's been in the shit. She's been in the war zone. This is her career. She's probably been at it for like 20 years, I would guess, probably more. There's even a moment when she's talking to Jesse early in the movie, and Jesse's like, I'm sorry I tagged along. I know you're angry about it. And she says, I'm not mad about it. You just need to know what you're getting yourself into, basically. And, you know, I'm just telling you, like, we're the ones that are going to be trouble for you. And there's no way that this is going to end well. And the Jesse character says, like, well, it's my choice. And I love this response when Lee's like, yeah, I know. And she says, I'll remember that when you lose your shit, you get blown up or you get shot. I'm going to remember that. Your choice. And Jesse asks her, would you take the picture, you know, of if I get killed? And Lee just says, what do you think? And then it cuts to the next shot. So I love how like kind of hard Lee is. Like she's very tough, you know, she's no bullshit, but she at the same time through that finds a good way to mentor, you know, and be like a foundation for this young up and comer. And where it gets really harsh for me is, I forgot to say it, right after she deletes that photo, when Sammy gets killed, you know, she ends up sitting down next to Jesse. And this is where we get kind of another turning point, but it's with dialogue now. But I like that it's very short and to the point. So I can still give it props for that, where Jesse just says, this is not quite quote for quote, but I've never been so scared in my life as I've been these past few days. But at the same time, I've never felt more alive. You know, and then we cut to the next. Now they're in the war on DC. That's a really great set piece. It's crazy to see what a civil war could potentially look like in the modern day. And this is set somewhat in the future, I think, based on some of the buildings they have up in New York. But it's an interesting thought, right? Like, and I've thought this before, and I'm sure many people have, and clearly Alex Garland has, of, yeah, if there was ever a civil war now, like, what does that look like? So it's interesting to see what that could possibly entail when you see this war zone type shit, like the kind of footage you'd see in other countries, but it's here in familiar territory, you know, like on your own turf. It's very interesting. And this battle on DC is really intense. This really feels kind of like, you know, war movie time, super loud, you know, kind of balls to the wall. And we're seeing Jesse, the young up and comer, like really start to take a lot of risks now. You know, she's like not afraid. She's getting in the mix. They're all in it. They're trying to get to the president. They're so close. The White House is right there. They're fighting their way in. Lee is starting to kind of struggle. You know, again, this was after that fulcrum moment, right, of her deleting the photo. That's how I took it. She's starting to change. She's starting to maybe gain more humanity and compassion, where Jesse is really starting to lose it. And unfortunately, you know, Jesse's taking risk, takes one too many, is about to get whacked. And then Lee comes in and pushes her down and saves her, but in turn gets killed herself, which I hate to see, because she's been through so much, and for her to go down like that, and to go down, you know, kind of saving this little girl who made the wrong decision, really sucks. It really sucks to see that. I didn't want to see her go. I had a feeling it was going to happen. You know, I thought for sure Wagner Moura was going to get killed too during the Jesse Plemons scene. Like, if anyone was going to get whacked right there, it was definitely going to be him. But it's a real bummer to see that. But I like the way they cover it, where as they're shooting their photos, the film will suddenly cut to like that frame of what the photo is like. And it's not overdone to where it gets annoying and like kills the flow. I think they did it just enough to keep it interesting, which, by the way, this movie is really well paced. The second time I saw it, man, it flew by. Like, even though I knew what was coming, it went by really, really quickly. Like, it's a quick watch in my opinion. But Lee gets killed and Jesse barely reacts. Like, she takes pause for a moment, but then she keeps moving. And then Joel, you know, Wagner Moura, who's been with Lee for who knows how many years, but clearly they have a rapport and they've been in the mix together for a while. He just moves on without even looking at her. Again, it's a loss of humanity, right? Like, the only thing that matters is we're going to get to the president. Like, none of you fools, doesn't matter what friends we are, how long we've been together, doesn't matter that you just got murdered. We're going. And it's sad to see. Loss of humanity, right? Loss of innocence, a complete detachment from just compassion to your fellow people as they fight their way and they eventually get to the president. You know, he stops them, Joel, from killing him. And he said this, it's so cold. There's so many cold moments in this movie. This might be the coldest part, is he goes to the president who's on the floor. They just dragged him out. All the guns are on him. And he's like, I need a quote. And he just, please don't let them kill me. And he just says, that'll do. And then they murder him, just boom, right there on site while Jesse gets the photo. And you know, this is the photo that's going to make her career. That now she got the shot. That's going to make her a superstar photographer like Lee was. And it's sad that it like came to that. Yeah, really, really good movie. I really liked it. It was worth watching twice. I love that whole character aspect of it. It leaves me conflicted because I hate to see Lee get whacked like that because she helped this girl. I hate to see this girl lose, you know, a degree of her humanity. So it left me like really thinking about that, and that stuck with me, but that's the reality of it, right? That's just what it is. And that's part of what makes it a good movie. You know, I feel like I relate to aspects of that a little bit now. I'm no war photographer, nor do I ever want to be in a situation like that. But working in news, I mean, recently I had to do a police ride along in West Hollywood, and I'm there with the camera, and, you know, we're covering like a motorcycle accident. This person's injured on the floor, and I got to go in and shoot. Oh, there's a puddle of blood. We go shoot the blood and this and that. And I'm telling you, it feels really gross. It feels super icky. I did not like doing it at all because I struggle to detach from things like that. And I do it because it's, you know, the job right now, and I'm just trying to make money. I mean, it's a shitty way to do it, but, yeah, like I kind of feel that. So I think those aspects of it really struck me. Like, you know, I feel very disgusting. Like I feel gross doing that stuff. And then I see these people just, you know, that's what they do. And that's all they care about. And it's getting the shot. I don't know that I could ever be cut out for that. And I don't want to be honest. But yeah, I think that aspect of it really stuck out to me, for those reasons. And one thing I would have liked more of is I think they could have done a little more with Wagner Moura's character, Joel. I mean, the only other thing I've seen him in is Narcos. You know, he played Pablo Escobar. Great in that show. I just actually recently started rewatching it. I haven't seen him in anything else. I know he was a voice in the newest Puss in Boots. Haven't seen him in any other movies or shows, but yeah, in this, he's good and he has his moments to shine. But, well, does he really have his moments to shine though? Maybe like one where he's like screaming in slow motion because Sammy got killed. But I think they could have done more with him. He's really underutilized, and he's supposed to be the reporter, but we never see him writing things down or doing any sort of reporting. We never see him recording anything or like even doing interview, like nothing. Even when he goes to the president at the end, he doesn't record the quote. He doesn't write it down. He just leans next to him and says, I need a quote. Okay, that'll do. And then that's it. So who's to say that it actually happened? I thought that was kind of weird. You know, like we're seeing it through the eyes of the photographers, but it would have been nice to see more of him doing reporting, you know? So I think that's the one kind of thing I think could have, you know, been better. Yeah, though, recommend the movie. It's good. You know, maybe I'll go see it again if I have some friends that didn't catch it yet. Yeah, I think that's going to be a wrap on this one. I don't have much else to say about it. Garrison Bros Balmorhea, Texas Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Try it if you haven't. Go watch The Long Game. Please go support it. We got to support more movies like that. Yeah, check out The Long Game and check out Civil War. All right. Anyway, that's a wrap. Cheers.